I cannot wait for everyone who watched the Batman animated series to watch this show.
So he said, let's take all the stories that we couldn't tell to 10-year-olds and now traumatize 30-year-olds with them.
Do you think she knows that he's Batman?
I have never seen Harley Quinn depicted like this in my life.
Greetings, Palaxians. Today on the Bounty Board, we're giving you both our spoiler-free and our spoiler-filled thoughts on Amazon's new Batman animated series. So kick up that warp drive and let's punch it.
What's going on, everybody? My name is MT, and welcome back to the Guardians of the Palaxy podcast. Today, I'm with my three amazing friends, Tommy Bechtold, Whitney Van Laningham, and Mr. Ryan Arey himself, YouTube legend from ScreenCrush. What's poppin', homie?
Good to see you guys.
You left the video store for this. I don't think I've ever seen you outside of the store. Did Colton let you out finally?
The video store is like Severance, right? When I go back, I'll have no memory of this event. So that's how it goes.
I was wondering if this was like a really cool Hawaiian variant of Ryan.
This is podcast Ryan. This is like
This
the
is
different
great.
Ryan
Oh,
reaction
shit.
figures.
I like
There's
that.
a
Oh,
podcast
shit.
figure that always has the Hawaiian shirt on.
I like that a lot.
Hawaiian Ryan, I dig it.
Speaking of variants, a little bit later in this discussion, we're going to talk about some of the villain variants in Batman Caped Crusader.
Just a heads up to our beautiful, beautiful pals at home. The first half of this is going to be spoiler free. So if you have not seen Batman Caped Crusader yet, you are safe for like the next 15 minutes. And if you want to check it out, please run, don't walk. It is a fucking great show.
It really, really is.
This show is like a almost, I think of as like a reimagining of Batman the Animated Series from Bruce Timm, who was the man who imagined Batman the Animated Series. So
Yeah.
it's certainly aesthetically kind of lives in the same world. We got those crazy, 1940s and 50s cars driving around, and
Love to see it.
love to see it. And it's got a little noir, obviously. It's got a lot of noir, actually. And my initial reaction was just there was something very, very comforting and familiar. Whitney and I got to see an episode of it at Comic-Con. We saw the first, the pilot. And I was like, oh, this feels very familiar. And yet then there were just some curveballs. And I was like, this is a brand new thing. Bruce Timm. That's an old dog that learned some new tricks on this one. No offense, not to be ageist, of course, Bruce. All respect to the master.
All respect to every Bruce out there.
I do want to ask you guys, what are you guys' personal past experiences with Batman the Animated Series? Did you guys watch it growing up as kids, or did you guys watch it later on in life?
I was a OG early adopter. I believe it came out in 1991 or 92, so that would have made me 8 or 9, depending. And that was appointment viewing when I got home from school. Batman the Animated Series in Rochester came on at 4 p.m. and it usually ran back-to-back episodes. And I don't think I missed a day. I think I've seen every episode of Batman the Animated Series probably 5 times. And and all of that was very satisfying in some of the ways some of the elements of that were brought back for Caped Crusader. What about you guys?
I mean, religiously when I was a kid. But it was one of those things where I was about 11 or 12 when that show came out, right? So loved the Burton Batman movie. We didn't have a lot of superheroes on TV. It was this and the X-Men. So when this came on, you just knew it was different. I grew up with the Super Friends and Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends. So that's what we expected it to be. But man, B-Task, that's what we can call it, right? B-Task got dark.
Oh, hell yeah.
It didn't get as dark as this show, which I'll talk about in the non-spoiler section. But there was that episode and it was the episode they put on primetime. They tried to, it was winning Emmy, so they tried to put it on primetime Sunday nights at 7 o'clock. The two-parter where he meets the robot who thinks he's Bruce Wayne. It's heartbreaking, man. Even all the Clayface stuff, even the episode of the labor camp was great,
Yeah. The Clayface stuff with his daughter was like, oh my God. I'm crying for this villain who's literally making deadly axes out of his arms. And I'm like, oh God, no, Clayface.
But again, we never got subtlety and nuance in superhero or any kind of Saturday morning cartoon show before, or even after it was after school. Like the other after school, the major one was He-Man and Ninja Turtles. We never got subtleties in the villains. We never got nuance, and this show just delivered in every way possible. I mean, it was incredible.
I don't know. You didn't find any subtlety in a human brain inside a giant robotic body that sat right in his abdomen. You
a little bit too realistic.
Well, you know, everything Krang always thought came from his gut. You know, you gotta admit that.
He had true grit, for sure.
The animated series was huge for, like, you know, building like the entire, like, you know, universe that would become like the Justice League universe, and like that show was just so monumental to cartoons in general for the 90s. Like it was huge for me. Like I religiously watched the Justice League animated series when it was on Toonami, and that was my first foray into this universe. But anyway, enough about the past. Let's talk about.
I want to tell my story. Let me Batman.
I'm interested to hear, because Whitney and MT, you guys are about a decade younger. I'm interested to see how a show that came on basically either before or when you were born, how did you find your way to it?
So I was born in 1991, and I am trying to be ageist. You guys are old as fuck. Holy shit. Just kidding. I love you guys. So I was obviously either a freshly born babe or a 1-year-old when it came out. So I started watching BTAS with my grandpa. My grandpa, for some reason, I don't know why he was so fucking cool, but like after the war, he got really into comics. And so my grandpa was the person who like introduced me to comics, and he fucking loved him some BTAS. So every time I went over to my grandparents' house, because, another fun fact, my parents did not let me watch TV at all when I was a child. Movies only, no TV. They didn't want it to rot my brain. So the only time I got to watch TV was when I was at my grandparents' house. So I would go to my grandpa's house and we would watch fucking BTAS. And I still remember exactly how it felt to this day, viscerally, when I found out that fucking Mark Hamill could be the Joker and Luke Skywalker. That shit just blew my tiny, tiny brain hole. I was just like, what? They're the same guy. So I had a lovely time watching that when I was a baby, fresh little kindergartner back then, because I think that they waited to show it to me till I was like, fully formed sentences.
Absolutely.
But I had to rewatch it recently, not super recently, but when I was back at Nerdwire, I had to do a rewatch of it because I was covering Mark Hamill's Hollywood Walk of Fame star. I did do like a pretty semi-recent rewatch, and gotta say, holds up.
It's a classic, man. Like so good. And like this new series definitely carries that spirit. Cause like it carries the same like retro futuristic vibe, even though like this is like very, very retro, like it's like set in like the 1950s, but like
interestingly at Comic-Con they kind of were like purposely ambiguous. Like they were like, it's not necessarily the past, it's like it's just the way, that's just the world that it is. Which, if you recall, the TV show Gotham kind of dealt with that too. Like they kind of lived in this, like, people had cell phones, but the cars were all like very 70s and 80s. And there was like, it seemed like, there were high tech computers, and there were also giant chunky computers on the desks of the police officers. Right. So I feel like one of the fun rules of Gotham City is that it like defies any time period, like certainly like in certain iterations though, they'll lock in. But like, yes, this MT, to your point, this is definitely the hairstyles on the women and men and are definitely more pointed towards the golden age of cinema and the 40s, 50s, I'd say 40s and 50s. Even when they go to the movie studio, all of that is very much vintage equipment and style.
I even thought late 1930s, early 1940s, both from the hairstyles. Yeah. And unlike, Batman the Animated Series, you're right, it was a different universe where it compiled elements, like there were computers, but they were massive supercomputers like we saw in Batman 89. So it really borrowed from the Tim Burton aesthetic. This one I don't think ever sways from the golden age grounding that it gets. Yeah. Like it's always like Batman picks locks with a small lock pick kit. Catwoman has her Golden Age costume. Batman has his Golden Age costume. Yeah. And they never really gave us anything high tech. I think the most high tech thing in it was the grappling gun. Even characters like Clayface are depicted as they were in the Golden Age and not as like giant sci-fi monsters made of goo.
Right. Like, no, I really like that, and especially Batman's Batcave. Like we're used to seeing like the huge computer and like all that stuff, but he literally just has a bunch of files and like he's looking through like newspaper clippings and like through like magnifying glasses and like it's like a very tedious way of doing research. I'm like, this is really cool. Like he's like a true
far
detective.
Cry from Morgan Freeman's portrayal.
Like his map of Gotham, the glass one, was also based on the Adam West show's map of Gotham. So it was filled with Easter eggs to the original show. Like there's one episode where they just fly through a bunch of microfish. And I was like, all right, let's go. That had all sorts of like B-Task callbacks, but also just other stuff that, it's a really fun show to break down.
This is, I'm almost forlorn or saddened that there's, I can't, all the, during my binge, I saw so many Easter eggs and I just wanted to like, point out what each one was borrowing from, and I was like, oh, I have no outlet for that.
You just text me. You can just text me.
I wish I'd known you wanted. Yeah, you could have sent us whatever you found.
In the future I will. It was more so just like
ScreenCrush pays for Easter eggs, man. You can send us a list and I'll pay you for it.
You know what? ScreenCrush is
and you get full credit. So there's that.
Damn.
Well, okay, that's something new.
That's something new that we're not used to.
Well, we could do a whole separate podcast on that. But in the interest of not doing that, what I will say is you're right. There's a fair amount of Batman 66 kind of at least tips of the cap. And that, for me, that show was very early in my life. My mom, one of the two greatest gifts my mom, fan of the show, friend of the show, Maggie Bechtold, gave to me was she had me watching Batman 66 reruns and Star Trek, the original series reruns from like the age of 4. Wow. When I got my first big boy room, when I was
it's Doug, the man himself.
Sorry to interrupt, Tommy, but he wanted up here. So,
my God.
I'm absolutely shocked, I tell you, that we were unable to focus when a dog came onto the screen. But
holy shit, Doug is the most famous person who's ever been on this podcast, and I'm so excited.
Nude right now, no shirt.
Yeah, this show just went into the stratosphere. Anyway,
sorry, you're talking about your mother, Maggie Bechtold, who watching Star Trek.
My first room was decked out in a Star Trek, the original series poster, the classic poster with Spock, Uhura, General Bones McCoy, and Kirk all posed like a class photo with the lasers in the background. And then I also had a Adam West, Burt Ward, Batman and Robin poster in my room. So the Batman 66 connections to this show, I couldn't stop noticing them because the villains, the rogues gallery in Batman 66, which I cannot wait to start doing some spoiler villain talk, is truly impressive. And even some of the side cameo villains we get in this animated series are truly rich and very, very, very enjoyable. So you guys, let's do some final thoughts before we get into the spoilies. Final thoughts, final non-spoiler thoughts before we get nasty with it.
Hell yeah, baby. I really liked the fact that this is yet another Columbofication of my favorite nerd properties. We had The Acolyte, which was a mystery. Now we have this mystery series, and I'm here for it, man. It's a nice little switch up from multiverse hopping, and now we just get detective shows of our favorite shit. Fucking inject that straight into my veins. I really, truly enjoy all of the mystery aspects the most. I love that we know who the villain is, but we don't always know in each episode just how they're going to get there. And that is also something I respect, is that this does not feel like any other Batman to me. This is a completely fresh Batman take. It borrows from Batman the Animated Series. I even definitely got, a few little Christopher Nolan Dark Knight vibes in there, but ultimately it is such a fresh take on all of these characters. They are completely reimagined, completely just fucking cool, just shit we haven't seen before. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it, guys. Go watch it, pals. How about you, MT? What are your thoughts?
This show was incredible, in my opinion. Like, I was super fortunate to break it down for heavy spoilers, and getting to see it early. I'm just like, I cannot wait for everyone who watched the Batman animated series to watch this show, because like it feels like a love letter to like not only that, but like you just said, like all of Batman that sort of came before, you know, this period. It's just like an amalgamation of that while also being its own thing set in the past. And also one of my favorite parts of the series is like how it just introduces a lot of really strong women characters and like making them the focus of the entire series. You know, without getting into spoilers, but like it's just, I just really like how like, you know, we have this like, you know, retro aesthetic, but like it's also very progressive, which is like what I meant when I meant like retro futuristic for this. Like, it felt like, you know, because like back in the day, you wouldn't see like, you know, an Asian woman or a black woman like in such like high positions of power. So like it's just really interesting to see happen in a really cool Batman show. But anyway, it's a fantastic show, and I really like the detective. Like it felt like Sherlock Holmes, which is what Batman is based off of. And so like it just felt like the golden age brought to life. So I'm a big fan.
And you know, we've been spoiled these last few weeks with Wolverine and Deadpool, and then now Caped Crusaders, and we've also been spoiled by today's amazing sponsor, who we deeply want to thank. So before we get to the spoilers, let's thank our sponsor today.
You guys, we have a really, really solid advertiser today, and I can't wait for Tommy Bechtold to tell us all about Mossman Gelbert's action figures. That's right. Mossman Gelbert is back again with another amazing product.
Knock, knock, everybody. How you doing? I'm Mossman Gelbert.
And it's me, Mossman Gelbert.
That's my beautiful wife, Bossman Gelbert, and we have our son, Bossman Gelbert, who will be joining us in just a moment. Now, y'all have been telling me, Mossman Gelbert, we love all your products, your artisanal condoms, your coffees, your whatnots. But one thing we can't wait to get our hands on is you, Mossman Gelbert, and that's why I've made this beautiful 1/34 scale action figure, the Mossman Gelbert, heavily articulated, heavily articulate, and mostly delicate action figure. It can do things like kung fu grip, margarita sip, and most of all, pouty lip. But it's not just the Mossman Gelbert action figures that you're going to be buying. There's also a whole line of the Moss Squad, like my wife, Mossman Gelbert's figure. Tell them about it, baby doll.
Oh, geez. Well, the Mossman Gelbert action figure has a special feature. It's like a nutcracker, but she can only chew soft bananas.
Oh. Now, introducing a new member of the Moss Gang, Bossman Gelbert, our son. Hey, Bossman, tell him about your action figure.
Listen, first of all, I want to talk about how great your action figures are first, because one of my favorite things to do is reenact the night that I was conceived by my mother and father. I take both of them and I smush them together like this every night before my birthday. And to remind me.
You're going to bring a tear to my eye. No, I should mention to the parents watching the show, one of our deals with the mold maker was that our figures would have interlocking genitals. So there is authentic conception techniques used on the Mossman Gelbert, Mossman Gelbert. Bossman is as flat as a Ken doll, unfortunately. We couldn't afford one more genital mold. Now, I know what you're thinking. I can't just own one Mossman figure. I got to own the whole dang family, and that's why we're happy to announce you can buy the whole Moss Gang set of 3 figures, and when you get that, you get a Build-A-Figure of Olympic figure skater Scott Hamilton, who is an honorary member of the Moss Gang. You'll be able to build your Scott Hamilton figure along with the Moss family for just the low price of $3,936. Now, I know what you're thinking. How so cheap? Well, we outsourced it to China, and if you use code MOSSBOSSHOSSAUCE right now, you will pay an extra $36, and your shipping will be double. So use the code MOSSHOSSAUCEBOSS right now to pay an extra $36 and double your shipping. Call us now, and don't forget to tell them Mossman sent you.
Okay, can I ask a question? Why have our ads become A, increasingly expensive, and B, we keep upping the price in all of them? We used to give discounts. What happened to us?
That is a discount.
One thing I learned from some of the old jobs that I've had on this sweet YouTube is profit.
Profit over people.
Profit over people. Profit over people. Anyway.
Pals, we are kidding. We would never do you like that. Pals come first.
One thing I will say about this channel is it's pals over profit. Now let's bring back that beautiful Ryan Arey and get the second half of this show on the road.
Hey.
Ryan.
Ryan's not legally allowed to do ads. We had to ban him from that.
Your ad for Moss Man really sent shivers up my spine because it reminded me of the Moss Man He-Man figure, which unlike all the other He-Man figures, it had this texture on it, which I don't know what the hell they made it out of. But even thinking about it makes me go, oh God! It's disgusting.
You just gave me like a tactile flashback. All right.
It's the new Margaret Thatcher naked on a cold day. You know what I mean? Like you just imagine that feeling. You're like,
I just Googled it, and what the heck is even this? What is this? Wow.
It's a He-Man figure. He's one of Skeletor's guys.
It's like a chia pet.
Yeah, I'm not really well versed in Moss Man's history because, I was 3. But the texture of it, though, worst He-Man action figure. And that's saying something in the company that gave us Ram Man.
Yes, that's true. Ram Man. There are some real clunkers in that collection. Let's talk about spoilers.
I've got a He-Man comic book collection. I can read it to you guys right now if you want to just
discussion. Let's just make this all He-Man based.
As long as I've hijacked the entire conversation about shit that does not matter. Let's just go for that.
That's what this whole show is. Listen.
That's literally the point of Palaxy.
I've been waiting to say this for 24 minutes and 4 seconds. Penguin is a lady. Penguin is a lady.
Yes. We got that Pangina finally.
Penguin is a lady.
Finally.
Oh yeah, she put her whole Pengussy into it, baby.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they basically made Penguin into Ma Beagle from DuckTales, which I loved. So, chapter 1.
Fuck you.
Oh my God.
It actually is the collection of all the comic books. Isn't it? Yeah, it's one of my
Holy
favorites.
shit. It's the Bible.
Yeah, really. It's really cool. No, she was like Ma Beagle on DuckTales.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, that's all I'm going to think about now.
Voiced by the wickedly talented Mini Driver.
I didn't know that. Actually, probably should have said that in our video. Here's one thing, though. The funny you bring up Mama Penguin. That was when I realized, this show's different. Because, it was billed as like Bruce Timm didn't want to do a continuation. Kevin Conroy obviously couldn't be part of it, so it shouldn't be a continuation. So he said, let's take all the stories that we couldn't tell to 10-year-olds and now traumatize 30-year-olds with them. Yeah. So as soon as she drops her son in the ocean in the trunk and he dies, did anybody else expect Batman to like Bruce Wayne to show up with the guy on his shoulders? Oh, this guy, he's almost out. Yeah, and then he just fucking died, man.
Dude, people stay dead. Clayface killed an entire movie studio. He literally killed a movie star. He killed the top director, producer at the studio, and then he let them rot under the floorboards. And they showed flies landing on their eyeballs.
Oh yeah,
it was nasty as fuck. I love that. By the way,
and it's interesting to me that they depicted him like he looks in the comics, and they didn't make him look like the other studio killer, David Zaslav.
Yeah.
They came out very
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean,
excellent.
Between him and Bob Paycheck, there were lots of options there. But they went with classic.
We went classic this
Bela
time.
Lugosi.
So, okay, let me ask you guys. Out of all the villains that we got this season, who were you guys' favorite villains?
Harley Quinn, hands down. Holy shit. I have never seen Harley Quinn depicted like this in my life. Harley's been done every way possible. I didn't even know she could be done like this. I am so stoked on this character. I am so glad that she actually survived so that we can probably, see more of her next season. Right. She was like the only person who had a fake out death, which was very interesting. But I just loved that she was just a revenge killer for people who don't take therapy seriously. That is just the ultimate female rage fantasy. I'm sorry. I identified with her. I thought that she was great. Plus, she's like a hot, confident lesbian. I mean, what more could you fucking ask for? I am obsessed with her.
Yeah, I agree. I loved this iteration. I thought it was fascinating, the slow build. I mean, for a 10 episode animated series that's not, that is every episode is kind of its own new story. I thought, having her introduced as the therapist, but also friends with, Barbara Gordon. They've severed the tie, the kind of like Joker Harley Quinn forever harness that is like, when you really break it down, it's kind of like breaking down Disney movies where you're like, Beast and Belle is actually a horribly toxic relationship, except for Joker and Harley is like the whole thing is right out in front of you. It's like, yeah, he basically he had to create her. He baptized her as a villain. And in this one, we just have an autonomous woman that is like, oh yeah, I specialize in doing therapy for really, really rich men. And I try and get them to see the morality in being generous and being loving. And when they don't, I lock them in the playpen and I put them in cute little costumes.
Which is adorable, by the way. She just dresses them up like little beanie babies. And I'm like, that is exactly what I would do.
But also according to whatever their particular sin or their particular hang-up was. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me ask you guys, though, because one thing I thought was curious is that she did not attempt to kidnap Bruce Wayne after deciding that their therapy had also gone nowhere. Do you think she knows that he's Batman?
I think that she's really close to finding out.
I actually kind of got that vibe.
I agree with MT. I don't think she's made that leap yet, but I think she would. I think that she would have gone to kidnap him had he continued. Because remember, she was like, we can keep doing this. And like, and there were interesting elements. Because I expected her turn to come when they introduced the Joker. So I thought they were laying elements like, a little smiley face in the folder and stuff like that, right? And I'm curious to pose a question to the group. Do you think that, we got the Joker tease. Do you think that when the Joker comes in, he's going to tempt away Harley and she'll like be subservient to him? Because she's bisexual, not a lesbian. And,
God damn it.
So she could be bisexual here.
I want her to be a hot lesbian in this. Let me have
She might be. Montoya's a lesbian. She's a lesbian in the show and in, which again, MT mentioned this earlier. It was really cool that the only thing I got an indication of Montoya says to Gordon, you took a chance on me. And I wasn't sure if that's because I think that was because she's a woman and not because of her race. But that was the only time it was ever like acknowledged that like sexism is a thing or that racism is a thing, you know? It's like the MCU. There's no racism until we need to mention it.
Right, true.
I mean, like Captain America comes out of the ice and the closest we get was, Steve and I never really thought about what it would mean if a black man was yes, you would have thought that.
You would have
if you were from the 40s.
Like, the second that Steve Rogers came out of the ice, he would have been like, a black man's telling me what to do? I don't think so.
Other kind of highlights for me, and please weigh in on your thoughts this season. I loved the episode, even though it's not a glam. I love the rogues gallery that was kind of built out from this. Onomatopoeia. Like that was
I fucking love Onomatopoeia, bro. That dude is so cool.
So great. Such a weird, like, that mask is really creepy, even though it's so simple. It's just like something like, that American Gods, the show on Stars based on the Neil Gaiman book was they had characters that were faceless on it that were like kind of like basically like pawns. They were controlled by I think media, the god of media. And there's something so creepy about a fully human looking body that doesn't have a face to me. I don't know why. It's always anytime that's shown up in like horror or fantasy, the absence of a face, I think because we read so much from people's faces. And yet in comic books, so much is relied upon with masks. But I think even just having the eyes, like Spider-Man has his eyes. So you're like still kind of like, all right, there's at least some features there. This guy just having the circle and being like, just being so like, I don't know, like almost like jazz. Like he's like, he's just like, he's very, very chill.
Speaking in onomatopoeias.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, bang. But or when he was doing the drip, when he was like,
he's like, blip, blip, drip. Freaking, you're definitely not going to like the question when she becomes the question. When Renee becomes the question, she has the mask with no face.
Yeah.
That's
well, I mean, I didn't like, or I was like, kind of, what's his name in Watchmen? Tim Blake Nelson's character in the TV show that had like the mirror mask.
Yeah.
Someone can amateur diagnose me on that and just put it in the comments. What's wrong with me specifically about that? Because you can't make it about my appearance. Make it about my brain.
Fun fact about onomatopoeia: It was created by Kevin Smith.
Oh, no.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's
a
awesome.
Kevin
Really
Smith
fun
original character, which is super great.
I to the villain question would probably also go with Harley Quinn.
Hell yeah.
But I also really appreciated the Clayface episode. Just because it was written by Greg Rucka, who's written mystery novels and he wrote Detective Comics. When he wrote Detective Comics, he made it Detective Comics.
Yeah.
So that was a standout just episode about a villain because really, if you only know the original series, you don't know the comics, you don't know who this guy is. You're looking for Matt Hagen. You know, I thought that was really cool.
Love the nod at the beginning of the Harley Quinn episode to King Tut, who was a Batman 66 villain. And a fun fact that I just randomly stumbled upon last week before even watching Cape Crusader was the actor, when King Tut that was on Batman 66, the actor who played him was like 24 years old. He was like the youngest person to ever play a Batman villain, but they like made him up to like look old. No, I know.
Look that way. Oh my God.
Yeah, he was
wild.
Yeah, he was a young guy. But I like the, King Tut as a full episode villain, probably not enough legs or not enough. They'd have to make some severe changes to his personality. But getting him as a like kind of side character that is leading us to solve the mystery of Harleen Quinzel being Harley Quinn and, having more than just a successful therapy practice, but actually a dungeon full of rich white men, which boy, oh boy, if I could afford that, you guys would never see me. But I think the pilot episode, which again, Whit and I were lucky enough to see at Comic-Con, and then they immediately came out and they had Minnie Driver was there. Matt Reeves was there speaking about, because we haven't even mentioned yet. Cool, Matt Reeves is executive producing this, and Matt Reeves is like obviously with the Batman and the the presence he has with the Batman franchise, but there's like probably not a bigger Batman fan out there than Matt Reeves too, which I think is why it took so long for his first project to get off the ground, is there was probably some element of like him being a perfectionist too. I thought it was interesting with this harder, darker edge than, Ryan perfectly put, like we were traumatized as 10-year-olds by the animated series with like, near deaths and, slightly now as adults, I feel like Matt Reeves is having an influence in traumatizing us as adults with this show, most definitely. Like, mothers throwing their sons into icy cold water in a trunk.
I just couldn't believe that, because I don't think that correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that like any female Batman villain has been portrayed as that brutal and that cold. Like she just fucking killed her son, and she wasn't even right. Like she didn't even kill the right son,
and she wasn't even sorry.
No, and she was just kind of like, oh, oops, oh well, hate those kids.
And Ma Beagle has a bunch. She's a dog, so she has a bunch of kids. Penguin's only got two. She's got a litter, right? And she doesn't. Penguin's got 2 kids and didn't seem bothered by murdering either of them.
But speaking of kids being traumatized, like if I'm a kid and I'm watching the Nocturna episode, which featured like 4 Robins in one episode, which was my favorite. We had Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Carrie Kelly, and Stephanie Brown. I was like, oh my God, this is my favorite Batgirl is Stephanie Brown, so I was so happy to see Stephanie Brown representation because I think she's really fun. But that episode was just like we saw kids' life force being drained out of them, and it's just like she's just stacking up dead bodies, near dead bodies. Also, the end of that episode was very much like a Batman Ace moment that we got in Justice League, where he saves that girl that was like terminally ill. But was like acting as the villain, and like he was just like, we saw that Batman compassion where he's like, I don't let anyone die regardless of what they did, or like he loves, like he cares about the people that he protects. And I like seeing that side.
What a chump.
What a loser.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of children in this show, the other child trauma was the Firebug episode.
Yeah.
I have to say, I think that for me, that was like the most beautifully animated episode, because when he puts on like the goggles and you see the world from his perspective, like engulfed in flames. It's like the experience that Tommy and I had at Comic-Con when the Penguin Lounge caught on fire. Pretty much the same vibe. Just kidding. God. But I think that was seriously like one of the most beautifully animated scenes. I think that the animation for like natural elements in this show are really well done. All of the rain scenes really blew my mind too, like the way that they animated the rain, the like the forced perspective of like the broken glass of the cop car, and then you can see through it. I just love that stuff. I think that they just did top-notch job on the animation in this show. And also, Look, that's the poster I got at Comic-Con, because they gave us all, they gave everyone a poster except for Tommy because he's a bad boy.
Everyone a poster.
Yeah, they gave everyone a poster except for Tommy for some reason.
Big T-Man got a pass to come back into like the Voltron panel that was 2 hours later. And I said, no poster? And they said, no, a pass to come back. And I said, why don't you kiss my ass with that pass? Listen to me, guys. Before we get out of here, I want to know, so we've got season 2 confirmed. That was confirmed at Comic-Con, actually.
Yeah.
Let's fucking go.
A lot of these animated shows, they get those double orders and then they roll them out, slow so they can announce. So they should be proud. I mean, the first season, I believe, is a triumph. What villains are you guys hoping that we see in season 2? And and a follow up, will we see any additional heroes appear in season 2?
I want Gentleman Ghost again. Just kidding.
Oh God!
Yeah, I was about to say that was the one. Yeah, that was the one where I did not. That was not my jam. That was not. I was like, I don't
left field.
Was Gentleman Ghost the one that Adam West voiced in the animated series? Was that Gray Ghost? I can't remember.
Gray Ghost, and there's an Easter egg to him in the show too.
Yeah, Alfred reading the book.
There's certain ones like I know we're going to get Joker, great, and it's easy to go like, well, Riddler and there's a Scarecrow Easter egg in this one too.
Right.
I would like to see this take like with Harvey Dent, right? They did a great job showing Harvey not really a good guy beforehand. So they're able to give like layers to certain people. Given that, I'm kind of curious what they would do with somebody like Scarecrow, but I also kind of want to see like a lesser tier villain like the Mad Hatter. What they would do with that guy if you take away that sci-fi mind control element. Is it hypnosis? Or what other weird Alice in Wonderland things would they cook up out of a noir setting like this?
Right.
So I would go for like a low tier villain, preferably staying away from sci-fi like Man-Bat or Magic like Gentleman Ghost or the Demon or whoever.
MT, what do you think?
Yeah, Scarecrow's good because the Scarecrow was teased throughout the series as Harley Quinn's old professor. But like, I think that like it would be really fun to see. I'm a big fan of Calendar Man, even though Calendar Man hasn't really gotten his due. I think that Calendar Man, like a Matt Reeves Calendar Man, whether it be like in this cartoon or in the Batman show, movies. Would be fantastic. The whole Batman diary aspect of like I'm blanking on the name.
Long Halloween.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like I think that works really well with Calendar Man's whole jam. Hopefully Calendar Man, but like I think that like what Ryan said, the Scarecrow would be like phenomenal, especially like given what we saw in the post-credit scene with the Joker. Like he seems to be very chemistry based, like this Joker, just like he was in the original comics. He was originally from a lab or whatever. He used to work in a lab. So like I think that we're just this universe is very like sciencey based, and so like if we do see a Scarecrow, it's probably gonna be like, yeah, I made Scarecrow juice, I farted it all over Gotham, and now everyone's scared.
Those mother effers. All right, Whitney, what about you?
All right, I'm gonna go with Killer Croc, baby, because I want to see the 1930s murder mystery wrestler like version of that situation. That's what I want to see. I think that they could do just like they could have a lot of fun with that for the setting. And so I think that's my pick, Killer Croc.
There are two Batman 66 villains that I thought were incredibly creative at the time. And a little silly, but I think under the presentation of this show, the first, and I'm not kidding, a misfortunate man piano player named Shondell, played by Liberace, who was a concert pianist who was being held captive by his identical twin cousin, Gary, who was a gangster. But here's what I would do. So Shondell was like playing magical, like hypnotic piano chords that would like would lull the rich people in Gotham to sleep, and then Gary and his goons would come in and clean up. I think you make it one person with split personalities, and Gary and Shundell are the same person.
Yeah, cool.
Give us a little Moon Knight action.
It was a really fun episode because Liberace, who, is famously very theatrical and flamboyant, played both parts. And he played Gary, the kind of mobster guy, really pretty convincingly for a campy TV show like Batman. I just would love to see a voice actor, one of our more talented voice actors take that on. The second person is what I call the spiritual godfather to Clayface, Falseface, who was the man who could make a mask of anyone. He was Falseface was a Batman 66 villain that was and it was my favorite when he would have episodes, because how you knew it was Falseface is someone either Commissioner Gordon or Batman or Robin would be having a conversation with each other, and that person's personality would radically shift, and then they'd go Falseface, and they'd do a stinger and then they'd cut back to Batman's face, and he'd just be wearing the Falseface mask. He just as soon as you said his name, his perfect Batman he just had this ridiculous mask of one of those creepy human face masks. Anyway, I would love to see. I'm a sucker for Batman 66. Like I said, I'd love to see more of those characters woven in a darker, edgier way. But that's just me. I'm full of darkness, guys. I have a heart of darkness, which is why every week I gather with my pals to shine a little light into this cave of misery. I want to thank my pals for talking Caped Crusader with me today, and I want to thank our very special guest from Ryan Arey.
Ultra special guest.
Stop it, guys.
Dude,
Thank you.
ultra special.
Yes.
Ryan, of course, can be found at ScreenCrush, and you can occasionally see Whitney and I joining him in the fracas. I also want to thank my best pals, Whitney and MT. Always a great time talking to you guys, especially when we get to talk Batman. Guys, as we always say, take care of your pals, check in on your pals, be good to your pals, and take care of yourself. Be your own best pal.
Hey.
Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Blood in, blood out, Palaxy for life!
Yeah! Matching tattoos, let's go!